All right. Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome into the Nifty Q Show. We're interviewing founders, leaders, and builders in the Web3 and NFT space. Today, I'm sitting with Bradley Miles, co-founder of the Roll platform. We'll be chatting on the future of social tokens, how they differ from NFTs, the ownership versus consumption economy, and much more. And we were reminiscing already before I pressed live, so I think we didn't want to make the people wait any longer, though. Bradley, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, live from New York City. How about you?
Live from New York. That's the first time. It's not Saturday night though, so we can't go all the way with that. Hey guys, we are gonna have ourselves a great conversation on social tokens. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether that be on Twitter, YouTube, or all the podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the good stuff. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel for a long time. And part of this conversation is going to be a thank you to Bradley as well for supporting the channel and the network for so long via their social token platform and the distribution and the creation and a lot of the curation of what the LADZ token is and will become has a lot to do with you guys. So I don't want to get too heady too quick, but I just want to say thank you for supporting us for as long as you have.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
Awesome, man. All right, let's keep it light just to start off with. You told me you're traveling. What's going on in your life now? You're headed over to, did you say Singapore?
Yeah, so we did a fundraise recently, and a lot of our investors are in Asia. I've only met them in Telegram and Discord and different sorts of things. But yeah, there's an event called Token 2049, and yeah, just giving a talk there. So booked the flight right before the call. Should be fun.
Awesome, man. Well, have you been to Asia before? Like I said, I'm not familiar with the area. I am going to Germany here within the next couple of weeks, but go ahead.
No, I haven't. Yeah, so just gonna quick layover in Seoul, and then yeah, right to Singapore. Never been to either.
All right, well, we'll have to have a follow-up convo, and you let me know the places that you hit. But yeah, it should be a good time here. We have about an hour that we will be with each other. We have a lot to squeeze in. I took a lot from one of your recent interviews as well, Bradley. You have a great way of tying in, I think, traditional Web2 consumption and Web2, I guess, media practices and how this will look in Web3. But I did want to get to one of the best quotes of that podcast, and it said, "What you guys are doing at Roll is basically a mix between a Chipotle and a central bank." Please break that down for me, and then we will kind of be off and running.
Yeah, so for all the nerds out there, like in the entire history of money, up until a few years ago, people have never been able to create their own money. The entities that usually create money are referred to as central banks and adjust what we understand as the monetary policy and monetary system. Roll is sort of a solution at an economic geek level that allows you to have your own monetary system, your own token, tweak it in ways that are very similar to going to Chipotle and ordering, double guacamole or, double carnitas and, half carne asada. And so, we live in this world where, we're probably at about, 10,000 folks globally, maybe, in terms of people and communities that have created their own tokens. So it's kind of early YouTube territory. And there's just going to be some massive plays. I mean, imagine how many people are going to be doing this by 2030. So we're all early settlers in this land.
Yeah, I want to get into kind of the Web2 media companies and what entities are potentially, going to be doing this at a high level and a large scale here in the next coming years. You guys seem to be wanting to plant your flag early, obviously, in this creator economy, of course, that I think will exist obviously in a more mass adopted scale, obviously. But give me a little bit of background on yourself as far as were you working in that media industry? What was your work experience before you actually got yourself into crypto and founding Roll and getting yourself involved in the creator economy now?
Yeah, I was a bit of an investor before, so worked at kind of a boring growth stage investor fund that early investors in Seamless. I think that was the big thing. But really was just super into economics. Got into Bitcoin. Led research at a company called CoinDesk in like 2015. Was like the fifth person there. They were like, figure out this thing called Ethereum, and I'm kind of still in that room figuring out Ethereum. It keeps on evolving, and I just have a company now. That's the difference. But I've just been literally fascinated by Ethereum since that assignment in like 2016. Um, Wrote a book along the way that a lot of folks read called Break into VC. So it's one of the top like 5 books people will read if they want to like get into venture capital. So um, great read as well. Audio is a bit low. Let me fix that.
I turned you up here on my side as well. So,
Okay.
quick elevator pitch on how I become a VC. How do you become a VC?
Yeah, so you really got to differentiate yourself. Like I had an opportunity to basically like become a crypto VC or like start a company. I was way too interested in being a builder, but you have to be known as like, oh, you're the, that's Q, the drone guy, or you just got to really differentiate yourself in like one specific category. And then you have to really market that. And that's a great way to know the difference. You have to know how to value companies at a growth level, as well as just kind of thinking through what things can be worth at early stage. And that's the basic premise. And then just go hard on. Back in the day, it was Medium. Now it's more so podcast, Twitter, things like that. Try to put together massive research reports. When I was at CoinDesk, I put together the State of Blockchain report, like 100-page report on everything you could imagine about blockchain. And so if you're doing that for like drones, retail, like someone's going to notice, and you'll have an awesome resume. You don't need to go to Stanford or something like that.
Interesting. So you said that you went the product route, which is kind of the timeline I want to jump into. It's founding Roll, right? Like in that interview that you just had as well, you were mentioning that you guys founded Roll before, I believe, the invention of Uniswap or the launch of Uniswap version 1 as a protocol. And in that time, there's been so many different things. We've seen like multiple different kind of ups and downs, right? DeFi summer, NFT Lollapalooza, essentially, like whatever you want to freaking call the NFT adoption cycle that just happened. Now we're kind of sitting in that bear market. So, what have you learned in general in that time? I know we're gonna dive deep into a lot of those different timeline points, but just in general, it's been 2 years since
Yeah.
we kind of had you on the first time.
Yeah. So we're in hyperspace. We're going to continue to just experience, um, massive condense, booms and busts. You're going to see new categories appear. You're going to see, lots of bigger players come in. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to stop. We all know and consider this the next version of the internet. So everything you guys have read about or saw movies about or were there, throughout the 90s, like we're living the 90s of the traditional internet right now. You see massive companies succeed, fail, new concepts are going to appear, and it's going to blend into whatever comes next. So it's another thing like crypto and blockchain aren't the end. They're just the next piece of what's happening, and that's even more exciting.
So, as far as social tokens and NFTs are concerned, I think me and you both have the understanding that these can work together synergistically. They don't necessarily have to be competitive assets in a sense when it comes to creating a community and then monetizing that community. So, how do you view that relationship, right? Because you guys founded again the social token concept almost before NFTs even essentially existed at scale, at the scale we see it today. So, how do you view that relationship? Being most of the people listening to this are familiar with NFTs, but maybe not social tokens.
Yeah. So before, like I said, I love NFTs. I hold punks. I just changed my avatar to a punk last week, and pretty excited about everything NFTs, and friends with a lot of the founders from back in the day that have now gone on to do some really great things. Um, So NFTs are going to be around for the rest of the century, at least. It's a new way of understanding media and data, and that's not going to stop. Um, I think when it comes to community, there's a more fungible representation of that needs to exist, not just for governance, but also just as a ubiquitous thing. Think of the phrase like token of gratitude, or sort of these types of things. And so what social tokens do is kind of render real these things. So if I want to say thanks to Q for putting me on this show, I could, maybe send him 10 lads or something like this. And I could send him 10 lads because we both understand the value system there. And these lads or any social token derive their value from their sameness. If I were to give Q 10 different NFTs, I'm sure you would appreciate that as well. But it would be a much different offering. It'd be the equivalent of giving him 10 different pairs of Jordans, or 10 different, different types of collectible albums. And so there needs to be a moneyness. There needs to be like a sameness in community. And what's exciting there is, money's kind of boring. So upgrading it and putting it into these systems, doing stuff that Roll's about to do, like just throwing this stuff on Twitter, Discord, like whatever metaverse is, like whatever happens next. That's kind of the boring, Carnegie Steel style stuff. But the fun stuff is going to happen on top of that. Think of like when Stripe just started, it was just plugging in payments into different applications, and all of a sudden now you have the gig economy. Like that stuff makes DoorDash possible. Creator economy as well. Those platforms don't need to think about payments. And so we want to hypothesize this world. What does it look like if no one has to think about the creation of tokens, or kind of build that? What does the world look like? How does it change when, every platform has, millions of creators, and folks can just create tokens and send them really easily? And so that's just a quick breakdown. I think social tokens, community, NFTs, everything else, data, all the things you're seeing now, probably identity.
Yeah, I want to get into all these use cases as well. Guys, I'm sitting here with Bradley Miles, co-founder of the Roll platform. Bradley, the one thing I will say, notifications on Discord are coming through, I think, my volume. So that might be something you want to, that might just be something you want to mute so that we don't have any audio issues on the podcast recording. If you can mute those, that would be great. I don't know if you can, but the next piece that I kind of want to get into, when you go into founding this, and we're going to touch on, again, the relationship between NFTs and social tokens, but what is the relationship of social tokens to some other asset that maybe existed before Web3, right? Like I posted in the question bank there, ISAs have always been kind of an example. Is that something you use as an analogy to explain social tokens? Are they completely new primitive that just never existed before blockchain in Web3?
Yeah, so one of my favorite interviews is with Tyler Cowen and Vitalik. So Tyler Cowen's an economist. It's one of two colleges, I forget, but he has a great podcast. And it's kind of like Vitalik, kind of not dumbing down, but just kind of like speaking about Ethereum in specific ways. And he talks about the most interesting use cases on Ethereum being things that are uniquely possible on Ethereum. It's impossible to do it, without a blockchain, without the philosophy of blockchains, or anything like that. And so I'd put social tokens in that category. When you think, like, really our thesis is like, this is community as a digital asset. So like, if we're big YouTubers, we're thinking of community as a channel. If we're big on Twitch, we're thinking of community as a stream. And so people are representing that community, maybe in ways like the number of followers, or the number of subscribers. But again, that philosophy of ownership, you can't own your relationship with your subscribers really outside of the platform. Social tokens are just this glue, this value layer that can really wrap around everything and give you that level of ownership. So it's not like an alien concept that is like coming here. It's really just, this natural evolution. And once it fully pops, it's hard to imagine people going back to other models when I could pay for dinner in LADZ.
It does feel like we're in that kind of staging area though, right? Like I think you mentioned in that interview, Web 2.5 is kind of where we're at this moment. So I do want to jump back into that timeline from the time that you founded Roll to now. How has the explanation of social tokens to people that maybe don't know about Web3, don't know about blockchain, and then people within the ecosystem, like how has your attempt to explain and onboard these people into social tokens changed?
Yeah. So one of my favorite books is by Carlota Perez. She's a Latin American economist. It's called Technological Revolutions. Basically, breaks down technology into a few phases. The first phase being like the installation phase. This is like what happens. So, we're still in that installation phase, and then after comes like this big production investment phase. Um, but yeah, I think that, and obviously I'm biased, but I think that this will be the biggest consumer moment in Web3. I think that because the personal computer was the biggest moment in the early digital age. Uh, personalized video was the biggest moment in social media and still is. Um, Personal currency uh, feels like it's going to be the biggest thing from a consumer point of view, and so that's changed a little bit. In the way I describe it, just really linking this back to what people know and understand, and the realization that you already think of your economy loosely. Like I have my Instagram, I have my Twitter, I have my this. This is something that comes next. You already have your economy. Now you have this digital way to represent it outside of Instagram and these platforms.
You mentioned Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, all of the big, large entities that everybody knows about. What, in your opinion, or who, in your opinion, has the most Web3? I hate to butcher this question, but Web3 ish principles, right? Like which
Right.
platform is going to be the first to really adopt things like having social tokens within their platform? Do you, and is that coming within a year? Like, are these conversations you're having with people at those companies?
Yeah, it'll be next year. And so one thing that I'm excited about is so Q mentioned that Roll was created like before Roll went live like 2 months before Uniswap V1. So like we had no real understanding of there'd be this super friendly interface that a whole new version of finance could be built on. So we had some really innovative creators, Q included, that built liquidity, and there's now a price to this thing that we thought was like a loyalty point, and like that was amazing. Now we're seeing the rise of like online gaming, GameFi, if you will, Web3 gaming, with play to earn. Guess what you can do with social tokens? Anything you can do in gaming or in any other space. So if there's a streaming platform out there that would integrate with Roll in the future, you can create a world where any artist you're listening to, you could earn their tokens. It's a new category that a platform can own. Let's call it listen to earn, right? And so you have 40 streaming platforms. What a cool way to differentiate. If I could listen to Drake on 40 different platforms, but there's this one platform where I can get Drake tokens, for
Mm-hmm.
listening. And so this is something, that sense of belonging, that sense of meaning that you can get from a creator through their token is why we think this is the community asset. And so it's the job of Roll to, just like Stripe with payments, just make that ubiquitous. Do applause to earn with something like, spatial audio, live to earn in a metaverse, right? You could have a
Mm-hmm.
universal basic income based on how long you're there. And so it goes on. And this is kind of, these are things that will happen. An interesting note is the way the space is growing. If you go to PayPal right now and buy Ethereum, It's a company behind the scenes called Paxos that's making that possible. So PayPal like didn't create the wallets or the exchange, just everything's sourced from Paxos. If you go to public.com/crypto and you buy, I don't know, Uni there, that's a company called Apex behind the scenes doing the same thing. And so this thesis is coming true. Like the bigger guys, they're just going to use other infrastructure to kind of make what they want to see happen, and that's exciting. It's the next generation of builders. You guys are going to power a lot of stuff.
Does this feel like a feature that's going to be added into something like a YouTube or Twitch, or does this happen off platform? Is kind of the question that I'm leaning in towards.
Yeah, so this is the Web 2.5 thesis. It's a little bit more of a boring word than Web 3, but it gets a lot of people that are a little scared more involved in the space. And so those folks may be founders or higher ups at these large companies. But yeah, if I can, let's say Terry Crews is a role creator, right? So if you have Terry Crews slinging power tokens across Twitter, that becomes really interesting. There's probably people of that size that would also do that. And that's a pretty interesting way. So Twitter has 300 million users. This is a pretty good way for like 50 to 75 million people to start getting tokens for the first time.
So you founded, like we keep referencing, Roll probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, almost 2 years, if not 2 years ago. How has the offerings within the platform changed? What do you have as far as features for creators to go in now, as opposed to when you first launched almost, again, 2 years ago?
Yeah, so we were basically the first. There was one platform that was that was like, hey, mint some tokens, and there's just no concept there of what a max supply would be or anything. So we kind of took that and kind of upgraded that. We had this PayPal eBay sort of moment. So PayPal was going to build out a bunch of like marketplace stuff early in the day, but they decided to be PayPal, but they needed an eBay to kind of be PayPal. And so we had that conundrum. We really wanted to be the infrastructure, but we really needed to create demand for applications. And so we were doing a whole lot of stuff. The most important and exciting stuff to folks was basically sending tokens. So that was kind of the main thing we did. We had a small interface for what we call rewards, or allowing people to spend tokens. Now we have a whole suite of awesome things. So now you could literally go to staking.tryroll.com and you can do liquidity mining for your token or any token. You can do liquidity mining for your sworn enemy's token. We can't stop you. You just connect your MetaMask wallet, create the parameters. What are you staking? How long? What are the rewards? And you go live there. We also have a memberships product. So it's very crypto Patreon. You can be a member of a community by holding a certain amount of tokens, and the creator monetizes because you purchase those tokens in ETH. And there's a whole list of tiers, different things you can get. Those are all determined by the creator. And since we're infrastructure, a lot of those benefits and perks, they're on other platforms. People are building out. Our dream is happening. People are building out token gated social. So we get to play around with that. So Q can do like a token gated live stream on this platform Bonfire, or create some token gated posts on on other platforms like Telly. And so the world's kind of emerging there, and we get to play with it and help those guys out.
I want to go back to, I just want to like frame the picture for people who maybe weren't in crypto or blockchain in this DeFi like range, when social tokens essentially were the narrative at the time, and being able to have a currency as opposed to maybe an NFT has a lot of different powerful features to that. When you're in a Discord and you can freely exchange social tokens with people and like bid on certain items, because that's one of the things we did while we're sitting here on an interview. We would like bid on, I don't know, just a random NFT at the time, and it was a really cool experience. I feel like the one piece that is something that you guys have obviously been tackling in that time is trying to reduce the amount of friction, right? Like you mentioned liquidity pools being part of the initial feature set. I'm sure that is one of the things on the top of your guys' mind. So explain kind of this Patreon feature that now seems a little bit simpler to do than say, okay, you need to go and add liquidity and you have to do all these, different hoops that you have to kind of jump through, that maybe people just like eventually said, I don't feel comfortable doing that, so maybe I don't want to.
Yeah. So we did things a little. We did everything except monetization early on, which it turns out is really important for creators. So we skipped that part. We went right to the part where you distribute a bunch of tokens and you gate some stuff and you provide liquidity. And so adding this form of membership, it's the way creators are starting to monetize. So we have a few contracts live right now. All this stuff went live last week. We curate some of it, but it's 100% permissionless. We just kind of help people launch. But yeah, we now have this monetization aspect where you could generate an ETH treasury if you're a DAO. If you're just a creator, you can kind of get some ETH. If you're on the other side of an NFT project, or you want to include tokens in your NFT project, you can also monetize in this way. And so we're seeing all the above. It's super exciting. And we're going to wrap it up in a nice, pretty SDK. And so for folks that are creating the next version of platforms, you have memberships and staking and minting tokens out of the box as well.
You mentioned that Roll is not going to be an NFT platform, but you guys potentially could have some form of feature on your platform that allows like some type of feature between the two, where you can like earn tokens for holding an NFT or something like that with staking. Correct? Was that the idea?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some really great NFT platforms out there. We definitely don't want to be the 5,000 NFT platform, but there are some things that I think are really cool. It's a company called Charged Particles. They're doing some
Love
pretty
those guys.
stuff. You can hide ERC20s inside of a NFT, so that's really cool. Like Q was saying, you can stake an NFT and then receive tokens. I think that's a really interesting use case. And so we're considering exploring that, but not too high on the list. We're excited about some other things in the social token space before that.
I actually love that that you mentioned you don't want to be the 5,000th NFT platform. You probably want to be the number one like social token platform. Is that a lot into your day to day? You're like, this is why we're going with this route, because we want to be the number one.
Yeah, I mean, books were probably pretty boring to operationalize on the internet when Amazon started. It completely ripped through books. Google completely ripped through search. And now they're building balloons and internet, like all because they did search really well, or go into space. And so it just goes back to that classic idea of just like do one thing well. So like if we're for the best social token infrastructure experience, we may be a film studio in 6 years. We may have a film studio arm like Amazon or something. It just goes back to just doing that one thing well instead of doing something else.
Yeah, I want to highlight chat really quick. Mass Mage is in chat saying, does Roll ever plan to roll out a way for users to buy social tokens on the Roll website with fiat, and that money can go right to the creator, centralizing it a bit more to drive traffic?
Yeah, for sure. I know my links aren't going to
drop it in the private chat. I can then get it on.
Yeah, so here's an article. Here's what we're kind of doing behind the scenes. So shout out to our legal team. This is a
big shout out.
And we are one by one, like Pokemon cards, getting state licenses and approval. So as of today, we have 5. So California, it's huge, 30 million users, 30 million people. And Colorado, Montana, Pennsylvania, another one coming up soon. I'm not going to announce that just yet. But yeah, probably by the end of the year, we will be able to have any token minted on Roll that has liquidity be purchased on Roll, and then anything that's connected with Roll. So a quick story, never held crypto before. You can connect, you're just on Twitter, you got these random tokens from this person, you connect your Roll wallet to Twitter, you connect your bank account to Roll, you can buy tokens on Twitter. And so those are the kind of things we're actually the most excited about. So when we say Web 2.5, we mean bringing Coinbase to Twitter, or doing some really cool things that we think really get 100 million people properly to Web3.
Does this, I don't mean to be frank, but does this shit ever test your patience? Because oftentimes when I'm talking to you, Bradley, it feels like this thing that's going to be awesome in 1.5 to 2 years, where it's just like, wow, I cannot wait to exchange crypto tokens or, just currency on Twitter. But then in the short term perspective, I'm like, that seems so far out of reach that it's almost boring to talk about, because it doesn't feel like to us that it's going to happen. Do you feel that like it's testing your patience as a founder?
Yeah, a lot of being a founder is patience for sure. But we're at a point where that's next year. We're getting these licenses ready to do those things. So by Q1 of next year, we'll have some betas out, and then from there we just create a simple JavaScript Twitter bot, JavaScript Discord bot, have just a bunch of communities playing around with it. But we have been talking about this stuff for a while, but we're at the point where next year is pretty much the year. Yeah.
I keep referencing this, and I guess it's just going over my head, but when you say you're putting in like a JavaScript bot, or you're putting in some sort of app or embed, are you doing I just wonder how is Twitter involved in this, right? If this is happening on their platform, although they're not responsible for actually creating it, could they be liable to regulation coming in and saying, hey, you have to not have this feature on your website? Or how are you guys looking at that from a regulatory perspective?
So there's companies like Instagram that they don't have open APIs. You can't really mess around on Facebook or Instagram, because that's that founder's decision. Twitter is a pretty open, open APIs. They're pretty bot friendly. You guys have probably seen things like unscroll, or just different types of bots or commands people can do. Back in the day, there used to be a crazy Bitcoin bot called Change Tip.
Yep.
It was actually so popular that Airbnb just acquired it, and they couldn't figure out what to do, so they squashed it. But that was all over Reddit. People were just Bitcoin tipping everywhere. And I still remember that. That was the coolest Bitcoin app I've ever seen. And so that actually, stuff like that, just the socialness of crypto, really inspires us. So pretty excited about that moment happening and bringing it to life for sure.
I remember broadly that was the case, that there was this Bitcoin tipping app. Are you saying that it just got acquired and died? Because this is something that could exist now today and doesn't exist because it got acquired by Airbnb, essentially.
It was so good that no one's really replaced it.
How many users did it have? What was the volume going through this app? I know I'm asking random off the cuff questions, but
it just went viral.
Okay.
People are just talking about Bitcoin, and then one day someone just tips you Bitcoin on our Bitcoin on Reddit. That's insane. And so you can look it up. On Google, change tip Airbnb or change coin. I think it happened in 2016, and I was just there being just glued to whatever they were doing. So they had a nice comfy interface, right? It's like a hub, it's a spaceship. You log in, connect your Reddit. Now your Reddit's connected to your change tip. Guess what? Now you can tip, Bitcoin to any user. Reddit, awesome open APIs. So we're gonna hit these open API platforms, first, and we'll ping Zuck and
please ping Zuck. Also, shout out to everybody on Twitter. If I wish you guys could leave a Bitcoin tip, I don't know if you guys would, but I shout out to you guys that are watching via Twitter right now, as well as YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in and podcasting platforms. You guys are supporting the channel. I appreciate you so much. DJ Savage is saying, what are Bradley's favorite crypto tokens. Are you getting into DeFi these days? I know this is kind of like an the train here, off the tracks as a question, but are you looking at DeFi? Are you looking at NFT protocols? What are you looking at these days for investing?
Yeah, investing in a few things. None of them too public, but just really excited more at like an infrastructure level. So I'm excited about people that are trying to reimagine just different things as protocols. There's something cool on Optimism. It was like a sports betting platform that kind of came out recently. I like the idea of journalism, so like Web3 journalism happening in kind of different ways. So more so like reimagining kind of shit that like millions of people are doing, but in like a protocol way. Um,
Shout out to Cent, by the way.
yeah,
What happened to Cent?
yeah.
That
So
was another platform that was huge, wasn't it?
I think if someone just literally did Cent right now and it was a new thing, it'd be really popular. And so yeah, those types of ideas. My favorite crypto right now, I'm a boring dude, but it's probably USDC,
Okay.
just because of the way people are like institutionalizing, like Visa's adopting, Stripe, that like everyone's adopting USDC for payouts, and they're integrating into these massive systems. And like, this is an ERC20 token. Like, that's amazing. And so it's just really cool to see that stuff.
Yeah, I want to ask one last question before we get back on track here. Ethereum merge. I know that's kind of a broader question. Do you have any insights on how you're playing the Ethereum merge? Anything that you think people out there should know about? I don't think we've had, and so we haven't had a show this week. So tomorrow we'll definitely be covering the merge. But how are you playing the merge? Is there any specific info that you're kind of thinking about?
Not really. I mean, just just reading Vitalik's tweets and just kind
Hmm.
of deciphering those. Not it's I'm told it won't kind of change much on
Yeah.
sort of the sort of gas level on L1, but it just supercharges a lot of other things that can be built on top. Yeah, nothing too hard. I'm definitely going to a merge party. Uh, One thing I'm doing.
I That's one of the dope things about living in NYC is you get to do cool shit like that. Like there's no merge party here for us in Virginia. Like very
Well,
very doubtful.
I my first like crypto love was Bitcoin, but I wasn't like hardcore. Like, it kind of turned me off how like hardcore Bitcoiners were.
Mhm.
But I remember these halving parties. People would have like Bitcoin halving parties, and like I was just like, I don't know if I want to go to that. But yeah, I'll definitely go to a merge party.
Yeah, guys, I appreciate you showing up and being active in chat here. We got a lot of Bradley fans here. NFT Action News saying Bradley is boss.
It's,
So, all right, I like to see it. Bradley is the co-founder of Roll, and we will get back on track in talking about Roll. So, you guys just released some new features here that we can kind of dive into as well. I want to touch on this last piece of adoption, which is, you guys are pretty much at the forefront here of like explaining Web3 blockchain tech to new users. You eventually want to have things like credit cards on the books and things like this. So, what are some other hurdles that you feel like creators have come to you with in mass and said, "Hey, this is maybe something we need to change"? Kind of, what do we need to do as an industry there to, from an adoption
um,
standpoint?
you mean things they hate in Web 2, or things that we should be doing in Web 3?
That's also a good question. But let's do the latter first
Okay.
here that you guys have had experience with. Again, I mentioned liquidity as
Yeah.
an issue in our own kind of user
Yeah.
base, saying, "Hey, I don't know how this all works." But what are some other issues that you guys have seen early on that you're looking to fix?
Yeah. So there's some bigger people coming on rolls. So we have Shepard Fairey as an Obey token. The Professor, largest basketball YouTuber in the world, has a Cross token. And so sometimes when larger creators come on, um, they kind of want their tokens to be like have a dollar value immediately. And I know there's people that are thinking about that in interesting ways, but none of them are necessarily real. So you may be floating on this, rinky-dink sidechain exchange, or it may be backed in a weird way. We want to make sure when you do this that there's no upper bound. It can literally be more valuable than Roll. Like before our last fundraise, there were tokens on Roll that were worth more than Roll the company, and this was kind of the point. That's impossible with a YouTube channel on YouTube. But when there's no upper bound, these things are possible. And so, yeah, someone was mentioning just that really simple ability to buy a token. It's so fun and interesting because I thought someone would solve this for us, but the reality is it's up to us. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have this effect that many exchanges have when someone just creates a DAO outside of Roll, but they want fiat onboarding, of course, and we'll pretty much be the first, place to list that. And when that DAO gets listed and integrated into Roll, it'll have all those features. And I think that's the most exciting thing in the world. If you just create a DAO and all of a sudden 300 million people can buy it, we'll be scouting out those things and integrating them. So fiat onboarding for sure is like a big thing I'm excited about.
So when you talk about ERC20 tokens, when you talk about DAOs, you're saying that social tokens are essentially any ERC20 token that exists for a community. Is that kind of your definition?
Yeah, so DAO tokens are social tokens. DAO tokens are a way to coordinate, communities for sure. We think of social tokens as like this base concept, and then there are like different subsets of it. So like, you may see if Sears had a loyalty token, they just Web3 blockchainized loyalty points, so we would call that a social token, or a DAO as well. The job of Roll, like really, like the secret, skunkworks mission is to make every token a social token. Like Bitcoin's a social token to us. If you, ChangeTip made Bitcoin a social token. If you're tipping it on Reddit and all these things, we want to make USDC or Uni or any of these other things social tokens. The category is much bigger than people think, but I think you only realize it when these things are flying around the internet.
So NFT Action News is here in chat asking if we touched on the Roll staking feature yet. If you want to kind of briefly cover that, we can hit that. I also want to mention Restream is a software that we've just recently moved to. It does a lot of cool things, but one thing, there's going to be a little bit of kinks as we get started with the new software. For whatever reason, it had an old title there on the Twitter. So if you're watching the Twitter stream, for whatever reason, I don't know why, it just did that. So it's not my fault. It's Restream's fault. But anyways, can you hit that Roll staking feature for us?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Action News. So Roll staking is, to my knowledge, the first time that you can create a staking contract in a few clicks. We had a unique circumstance where in the future we'll have to deal with what someone once described to me as a YouTube amount of tokens, like tens of millions of tokens that will exist. And so, holding the Chipotle analogy, you have to kind of be able to take people behind the counter and make their own contract, their own staking contract the way they want to do it. And so we're definitely not going to make that for you. It's much easier if we just allow you to go behind the counter. And so in a few clicks, you can do what protocols have done in the past, and as a creator. So you could generate liquidity. You can plug your NFT Action News token into Uniswap and create a liquidity pool, NFT Action News ETH LP token. And you could say, hey, Q's a fan. If Q stakes that NFT Action News ETH LP token, you're going to receive more NFT Action News tokens. And so what that does, the definition of liquidity, you're going to get more liquid over time because the community will now be able to contribute to this in a really big way. And so this solves a massive problem for Web3 creators. They can now get liquidity and their token has a value. And this is the lifeblood of a lot of social tokens. And now there's a product to do it.
Double-ended question here. how do creators get started with the platform? Like, what is literally that first step? Is it, setting up just an account and clicking a button and you initially have your tokens? And also, what are some communities that have done this well, right? Like I mean, since you guys have, been founded, there have been numerous amounts of communities that have gone through roles. Obviously, a lot still exist. Which ones are doing this well?
Yeah, so staking and memberships are super new. I'll send over. It's just a type form. You guys can click if you're interested, and actually hired some role creators that are kind of
Dope.
overseeing that process for us of just kind of getting back in. Um, yeah. Sorry, Q. Can you say the question again? It's lost.
No, which communities do you have that people
Oh yeah.
can take a look at, and then how do you get started? Like step one, two, three.
Yeah, so that link, is just the quickest way. You can just kind of go in and chat with their team, and just go ahead and create a token the next day. Um, Basically, there's kind of a Mr. Beast of role. It's definitely Whale Shark, so massive community.
Oh,
Follow them
whale
online.
shark.
Yeah. And so, massive creator, um, you know, um, great liquidity pool, great community. And just a true, like in Mr. Beast fashion, that's like the only analogy I have, just like hardest worker ever. Like, he does, they do 13 Twitter spaces a week just to kind of
Hmm.
get an idea. So like really grinding, really making community digital asset. It's the first token to get listed, the first role social token. There's a few now to get listed on a major centralized exchange. So these tokens are listed on KuCoin, Huobi, a few others as well, and so that's been interesting. Massive NFT creators like Hackatao, have, Mork, that's one. There's a record label, one of my favorite record labels, Leaving Records, created a token called Genre. And so this is an all encompassing token for the record label. So this record label is one of the first to start thinking about and exploring DAOs. And there's a lot of exciting creators as well. Folks you guys probably watch or know, Shepard Fairey with Obey, Cross. And then there's like this new generation of creators as well. We're really excited about NFT platforms, creating social tokens. We're seeing that. Just innovative folks. This guy Q Harrison um, created a memberships contract with Roll. I'll link you guys, and yeah, doing super well. Sold out really quickly, and we organized memberships in a way that it's separated into like time periods or phases, and so you guys can like take a look at that. But basically, the next phase starts next week. But yeah, sold out pretty quickly, and so pretty excited about role creators experiencing monetization through the tokens. And he's someone also works for a really well-known entrepreneur. So yeah, it's really cool to see the next crop of role creators just kind of jump in and use these products.
Yeah, big shout out to Whale Shark there. I remember back in the day, again, like we're talking about ancient history here, but Whale Shark was definitely pioneering a lot of different initiatives at the same time, right? Like social tokens. I think he did like an NFT. Well, it was a social token that was backed by an NFT vault. That was essentially was like the huge narrative of the
Yeah,
day.
kind of like
That
an
was awesome.
off-chain backed sort of way, but
Yeah.
yeah, super innovative guy.
Good point. Off chain, definitely. But all right, so I want to touch on this NFT social token piece. I know there are a lot of synergistic ways that these can work together. What are some ways that NFTs, I guess, you would use them as opposed to social tokens? Is kind of how I'll phrase it. Like, you've obviously been at the forefront of seeing how both work together. What do NFTs do better than social tokens? And what do social, and you can add on what do social tokens do better than NFTs, but I think we hit on that early as well.
Yeah. So NFTs are the future of media, probably data. There's probably a few other digital asset types that are going to represent data. and identity, and of course, an extension of that, property rights and deeds and things like this. So if you're buying digital land, it shouldn't necessarily exist as an NFT point. Like each plot of land should.
Uh-oh. Folks, I don't know if we've lost Bradley. We're going to wait just a...
If you are making so.
No, you're okay. I think I got you back. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I could hear you. I think
okay.
Yeah, so you're probably going to want, you're probably going to want, if you're creating, music as a digital asset, media, you're going to want that to be an NFT. Blog posts, things like this. That's kind of how we're thinking. Really, we see social tokens just oriented around the actual community. That's kind of how we're seeing it. So NFTs are good for just about everything. So you're going to continue to see this explosion of NFT companies. I think you're going to see more NFT companies than straight up like video companies. And then that's eventually going to hit a peak and then go down. But I think you'll only really ever see at like a infrastructure level, like maybe like 10 social token companies. But so you'll see social tokens everywhere through those companies.
That's an interesting dynamic because you want to I can't even wrap my mind around why that would exist. Why would there be essentially only 10 social token companies? Is it because you can distribute the tokens more at scale?
Yeah, I mean it's similar to kind of the payment processors. You could really only name like 3 or 4 payment processors. Top of your head, like PayPal, Stripe. It's like the way they move and function is cross-platform. It's like once you cover that frontier, like say we integrate into the top 5 biggest platforms, like you're going to see social tokens everywhere. But we've covered a lot of ground with those platforms.
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting talk for another day. We're coming up at the end of the episode here, but like the fungible nature leading to there being only a certain amount of people that are creating the infrastructure for that is super interesting to me, at least. But yeah, guys, we will continue here with the episode only for about like 5 or 6 more minutes. So definitely get any questions you have related to social tokens here in chat shortly. Bradley, it's been an amazing conversation, man. Is there anything we didn't hit on as far as role is concerned or what you're doing that you want to hit?
No, this was really great. I think I know the answer, but I'm curious. Are you guys more familiar with the concept of DAOs or social tokens?
Are you saying who's we, me or my community? What
the audience and you? I guess.
Oh, okay. He was like, I'm asking the audience, not you, Q. Jeez. So yeah, drop that into the chat. Are you guys more familiar with DAOs or social tokens? And Bradley, is there a reason why that's the specific question? Are you guys doing a little bit of research yourselves as to how we can onboard people or how people see social tokens?
Yeah, we sort of see DAOs as an application of social tokens. So like, let's say Roll works with a metaverse and we create, Nifty Q City, and Nifty Q City has its own money, and people can hold that money. And now there's, people can coordinate ideas. They can agree to buy more land, different types of things. We may not really consider that like fully a DAO, for instance, but like it is a social token. An artist, earning their token on a streaming platform, probably not necessarily a DAO, but it is a social token. So just curious. But if DAOs as an application are bigger than the concept of social tokens, that becomes pretty interesting.
I would say that most people know about social tokens. If you want to frame them that way, that any kind of ERC20 within a DAO is essentially a social token, I would say more people know about DAOs. I don't know why that's the case. I think maybe because DAOs essentially have come out of the NFT ecosystem, which are shown to be a large, portion of the public's knowledge about Web3.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, it's super interesting.
Hash Rhymes is saying first exposed to DAOs through social tokens, but have been hearing more about DAOs. So we have both ways apparently.
Yeah, no, it's just it's super interesting. It's yeah, so yeah, and so we kind of think people, like hash rhymes will like hear about a token, but they may eventually form a DAO. But trying to decide if it's too off-putting to just call everything a DAO,
Mm-hmm.
because that may be off-putting to some TikToker that otherwise would have got in. But yeah, we'll see.
It feels like the concept of a DAO is like abstracted from most people. I was having this like discussion with I don't know who. I think it was Gifted or someone here in the Web3 space, but most people in the Web2 space, I don't think they view like coordination as a certain
Yeah,
term. Like me and my, like I was using fantasy football as an example. Like I coordinate with 12 other people. We have a quote unquote commissioner. We have rules. These are all things that happen within DAOs, but people don't look at it that way. So it's interesting to me, like what DAO adoption will look like when people don't have terms for those things they do in regular life.
yeah, I'm not sure if the name matters so much, but but yeah, Nick has a good point there. When you say you're in a DAO, there is a feeling there.
100%. Yeah. So shout out to Nick Swerve. Shout out to the Las Vegas NFT and Web3 community out there. You guys are killing it. Gutter, are you going to the Gutter Cat Gang piece, Nick? I just want to ask you that here while you're still in chat. But we are going to finish up this episode. But I know Gutter Cat is having their specific event out there in September. So definitely want to hear more about that. Bradley, I think we are about to get up out of here, man. I appreciate the knowledge on social tokens. I think we touched on a lot of things, and you kind of got me up to date on where the social token space is. I guess have a good trip here in Singapore. That should be a fun time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, any last thoughts here that you want to grace us with? I know you've been doing so for about an hour, so
Yeah. Anyone has any good food recommendations for Singapore? Would appreciate it. I've never been to Singapore and would love to experience the great restaurants there. There's also a Formula One race, from what I understand, the day after. So I go to that too. But yeah, if you guys have any Singapore recommendations, happy to do them.
Formula One has to be the fastest growing sport in the US, like by amount of viewers. Like I'm just seeing more and more on Formula One each week. So that should be a good time.
I didn't know it was big in, Asia or Singapore. So
feels like it. All right. Well, we are big in Asia and Singapore eventually. The Nifty Q show, we'll get out there. I'm excited to have you guys here, and thank you so much for supporting the channel. Of course, again, we had Bradley Miles, co-founder of TriRoll, who is just getting after it within the social token industry and sector and really leading that industry as a whole. So I appreciate it, Bradley. Thank you so much for tuning in here today, guys. Thank you again. We will see you tomorrow for NFT Live on the network. We got a lot of things to talk about on that episode as it's related to the NFT space. So